For the latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Telling you guys a bit of a review video on a product from Isabella. So with me today I've got the Isabella Forum Etna. So the Forum is a model that's been probably in Isabella's back catalogue for a little while now. Something they used to do best part of 4 or 5 years ago, and it's kind of been reintroduced back into the range in the new Etna colour. So essentially what we're looking at here is a seasonal full awning, space in abundance. So tons of room, different designs. So the joys of this in particular comparison to say like the Penta is actually you've got a lot more flexibility in comparison, because you can alter the sort of front doors. Now with the Penta, where you had that kind of sort of rounded kind of sides, and it was almost 3.5 meters deep all the way through. Now with this is a little bit different. You've got sort of 3.5 meters deep is the overall size, but there's a dividing wall at 2.5. So it creates you this kind of meter kind of gap. So you can kind of entrance way undercover quite nice and neatly, and then you're to your main part of the awning, but you've still got the full-on 3.5 meters depth at either side. So you can really make it nice and versatile, so you have it in the same scenario as we have it now. Failing that, you can obviously alternate it and have the front panel deeper there, or failing that, this whole front panel can come at the front, so when you sort of walk in, it's 3.5 meters deep for the whole section. This in middle panel can obviously flip round as you see, so that way you can pretty much pick and choose how you want that setup to be, so that works really nicely. It has actually Isabella's mega frame, so basically it's a 35mm frame, which is a really nice heavy duty frame. Again, it's definitely seasonal use. I wouldn't want to be putting this up for a weekend, even say a week. You could do it, but it's going to be a bit of a lump, and obviously in several bags depending on kind of what your caravan awning size is. But it's really more designed for seasonal use for sure, especially from the overall kind of size of it itself. Now, with kind of the mega frame, you get the unique things of actually the double kind of clips. So essentially, when you've got all the adjustments at here is a double wing nut. So it's really designed again to be left up and stay up, more regardless of what the season's doing. It uses kind of Isabella's classic kind of acrylic material, so it's about 295 grams, so really good and strong, breathable as well. So again, you get be a lot cooler on a warm day in here, and again on a cold day it'll be a bit warm as well. The thing I do love about kind of the Isabella material in a way is that, okay, yes, it's what you pay for in Isabella is not necessarily cheap, but it lasts. You know, people have them for 15, 20 years onwards, prolonging you take care of them. This is down to numerous reasons. One, everything is European made, so again, it's essentially it's probably from a quality control point of view, it's at a higher standard. The materials they use are really decent. So what we're looking here is a really high spec acrylic fabric. And the fabric itself is actually dope dyed rather than say vat dyed. This essentially means that they dye the thread rather than dye the material itself. This is mainly important because necessarily what you find is when you dope dye and dye the thread, you get almost like a slightly elongated lifespan of the colour. So by best probably analogy I could probably use is the difference between say a radish and a carrot. Carrots, i.e. like dope dyeing like we have here, is sort of orange all the way through. You cut it in half, it's just pure. Whereas if you're looking at the other side of things, which other brands potentially do use, is that you have the radish scenario where you've got colour on the outside and it's pure white on the inside. So as kind of an awning gets on and on and on, what you find is that the fabric fades, and then that sort of coated colour comes away and you have more of a whiter bleached material. Now you don't necessarily get that so much with Isabella because of the systems they use. On the roof, we've got a sort of PU coated for the UV kind of side of things as well. So again, it's designed to sort of be that sort of sun barrier, and again, hopefully make the material last a lot longer. Overall, like I said, that's just one element. I think the way is how everything is all put together. So the fabric itself, what you find is basically it's triple folded and then double stitched to get your quality. Be very careful in making sure that every single tension point is additionally reinforced, and also in that instance it's also then kite stitched as well, again to keep that stability. Other things to mention as well are things like the zips. So The zips itself are kind of like a spiral chain zip, which means it's very easy to sort of pull in, especially when you get in hard tension corners. But what you also find is they use a kind of an oversized zip as well, again to get that assurity. Each zip itself is also counted, zip counted, so teeth counted, I should say. So they count necessarily the teeth that's on there. So that means that from a quality control point of view, they can make sure that everything is in the same line. So a few years down the line, if you need a panel, you know that that panel will happily fit a few years ago. So it's the testimony to detail that really, you know, it does stagger me sometimes on what levels they do go to make sure it's all, you know, as it should be. We've got kind of like a front canopy built onto it as well, so it goes all the way to the floor, so it means you get that protection against the wind and also the rain when you're in the main body. The mega frame obviously comes out, and you've got a sleeve as well that goes into the whole front of this canopy as well, so it's really nice and strong and brilliant for getting torsion too. And you can still see the kind of double zips, double sort of wing nuts really to make sure it's not going to slide anywhere, and once it's up, it pretty much stays up. You've got beautiful crystal clear PVC windows as well to also get plenty of light. And if you want some additional stability, not only can you use one of the Typhoon points to get, you know, a bit more tension. I'd also recommend, certainly for a seasonal use of course, buying some additional storm straps. Now, I personally wouldn't recommend the one that goes over to the top directly, just because after time, what you find is you can sometimes get colour discrimination, and actually you get a bit more rubbing of the material. So from a lifespan, it will actually sort of shorten lifespan of it. What you're better off doing is buying the Isabella strap ones. It lashes around the framework directly down here, and it pulls everything down in the framework down. And the framework's very, in terms of the way it's designed, is very tight to the actual material, so you'll never have to worry too much about that. So again, when by pulling the framework down, it hunkers everything down as well, and you don't have that worry about the rubbing from the outside. Other points to mention as well, not only that, is things like the elasticated point. So you've got a good amount of give to it. You can buy those additionally as well if you lose them. They lock into place quite nice and neatly if you need to. And then what on the other side, if you want additional strength, you've got various points to attach your own. Again, just to kind of lash those down as you see. But the thing I do find kind of Isabella is their tolerance levels for making sure it fits to as tight as a drum are very, very on it. So with acrylic as a material, it's not very, I won't say movable, but you need to make sure that you haven't got as much play when you're cutting and stitching it all together. So again, in a way it's good because it means it kind of harnesses the quality, and from a structural point of view in terms of strength, you find there's less room for anything to move around in, so often they do tend to be stronger in a way. It's almost like a throwback to kind of canvas tent. There's no give in the material, so it stays where it necessarily is. The canopy depth almost gets a bit higher, well, deeper at the front, and kind of spirals out a little bit more. You can still actually buy additional kind of things like canopies if you wanted to, for some reason, make it bigger, or sort of cozy corners, for example. So almost like a kind of open kind of canopy itself. The front panel, as we talked about, can obviously completely remove. So if you when you come to pitch it up, you can remove all of the front panels out, and then also the side panels. So again, it helps kind of feed it through the frame before you start setting it up. When you come to setting up, what I'd recommend you doing is almost treating it like a normal awning. So I'd probably say do the sort of 2.5 meter first. So you do that. Once you've kind of got that off, you would almost build it in 2 stages. One stage, and then this section here would then be the second stage. That way it makes it more manageable, and also it's a bit easier certainly from the poles on this scenario. When you try to line everything up, you also have longer poles and shorter poles, and there is a separate video kind of how you would necessarily put that up on its own. Throughout the awning, you've got small little details such as the sort of the door itself. So the door, you can have got like a miniature door like we have it here. Saying that, you can just unzip it from this point and roll it backwards if you want to, and every single point when you've got the door rolls back, you've got kind of elasticated little clipper points, so kind of neatly pops on and pops off as you see. The side bits, you can actually remove the side panels, as I said, and if you wanted to, so this part here will remove, and I'll move the camera around a bit later on in the video, and it allows you to put Awnings on either side again if you wanted some more space, or for sleeping as well, that's probably a worthwhile look at it. Door is built into the actual kind of side part here, so you've got a nice sort of door, rolls backwards and then rolls on the side. The joys of this necessarily means that if you wanted to come out your Caravan and necessarily go straight left, you wouldn't have to shut the door before coming out the back. So you've got a door at the back and at the front. Again, PVC window throughout the side as well to get that visibility, and you've got a really nice low level vent down here. The vent itself can actually zip up for airflow, and one thing I do like is that there's a zip running along the very bottom, so from a complete thorough point of view you haven't got to worry about the draft coming in and up. There's also little eyelets located in here, so if you wanted to kind of peg that out, you could quite happily do so, and you've got airflow and haven't got to worry about closing it when the rain does come, as we know it does. Also on the side we've got this almost retro kind of trim they've kind of gone back to, really just kind of brighten and make you know it's an Isabella. And the typical kind of signs of this also is the kind of the porthole, which actually is in the door section, which will roll back so you can't necessarily see that, but this is also very iconic. You've also got the Typhoon strap located here, really nice bit of leather just to get a really good bracing, so that you get a storm strap included with that, with the guide points. You've got another one located here as well, and also on the front where I showed you initially. Those, you get a pair as initially, but you can always add some extra ones on, which I would definitely recommend. This kind of very funky kind of retro thing also hides, there's a sleeve built into the underside of here. Now what that is essentially is allow you to feed some beading into, so if you wanted a side canopy, or if you wanted the door canopy that goes off the side here, you can attach that onto here, so you can almost have a rain safe door in and out. So again, that's we've got separate videos on that from Isabella about the option extras you can kind of put on that track, but it gives you the flexibility of later on if you want to chop and change it, you can obviously do so. The front kind of panel here is physically a nice big open window, which is obviously you cannot remove, it's built into itself, but it just sits so nicely in terms of how it fits as tight as a drum. It works really well. You could almost, I'm not going to do it, but you probably hang yourself off that if you really wanted to. But that's the storm straps I was talked about earlier. I said going directly down the frame, and you've got, gives you great sort of tension. But I'll tell you what, let's have a look inside the forum and talk through a load more features that it has. So now we're kind of inside the forum, and the first thing you can see is just how massive it really is. You know, there's tons and tons of room, and that's one thing you're definitely not going to be short of. And it is basically your home away from home, and that's what you want to create. It's something that's canvas, it's nice, it's strong, it's reliable, and that's kind of, you know, what essentially you pay your money for at the end of the day. So first thing we see obviously is the sort of, we'll call it, say, section 1 and section 2. So section 1 would be here, section 2 is that little extension out the front there. So the joys of, you can always have the back panels directly here and just have a, you know, a metre old canopy on the front of it. But we've got it set up in the alternative scenario, and again you can see the size of that mega frame. So that 32mm frame, really nice and strong, and you've got additional, depending on the span of kind of what your Caravan is, there will also be additional bracing points located here, again just to kind of really make sure it's sturdy, which is what you want to do, you know, when you've got your home away from home. But even with that 2.5 metre depth, you know, you can quite happily put furniture and tables and still be miles away from the actual part itself. And that's where I think for me it's really quite nice, the way we've got it set out here, where we've got, you know, tables and the chairs and a lampshade. It does create that kind of home away from home, and even with one of the biggest tables pretty much Isabella do, you know, you've still got tons of room away from the actual side itself. Now, as we see, we've got plenty of PVC windows. We've got the kind of traditional kind of Isabella style curtains everywhere. So the joys of actually being able to quite easily get the privacy we wanted to. And then when you come to take it down at the end of the season, very easy to take on and off. So you've got the special kind of slider, almost like a train on a slider point. And it gives you the ability as well to, you can turn the curtains either front side out or front side in, so you either get a pattern on the inside or you get everyone else to see your pattern. This is twinned up with a little sort of button clip we've got here, so a little retainer just to kind of get it nice and neat. And it's a nice little sort of square pattern on the actual curtain as well, which is a little bit different to probably what you see in the rest of Isabella's range. I'll just kind of clip that back. We've got PVC draft skirts located all the way around it, and you can overlap it in the corner as well to get a full length of seal. We'll pick the camera up in a minute and look at the actual reinforcements, every single pegging point, like I talked about on the outside. In the roof, we've got, like I said, the mega frame with the dual points, and you've got very much kind of overkill sort of structural points, really, because obviously it's the 3.5 metre in its entirety. Awning, you need to make sure it's there, and Isabella provides you with plenty of sort of adjustable bars to put in place to make sure it is going to be rock solid on the site when you leave it. Traditionally, if you're looking for the awning size, you're always best to have a look at our website, and then if need be, you can always contact us with what camera you've got. We can always look at what would fit your vehicle. So again, that's something we do offer as a service. The back panel, you can probably see it from the outside. We saw it from the outside earlier. It's got a slight slope to it as well, so what you find is there'll be a little retaining clip that you can add just to kind of keep that curtain tight against the actual panel itself. We've got, where the camera actually is a sort of creative veranda kind of style. We basically can drop this down, put it on a pole, and literally straight out. There is a sleeve located at the back here that the pole sits into, and that way we can get a bit more airflow into it. Obviously, this can be removed and put an annex onto if you wanted to create even more space or a sleeping space, you know, away out of the caravan itself. Other things to mention is how they've sort of reinforced it, not only at the pegging points, but even in the corners here, it's all reinforced. This main aim frame as well, there's actually a separate bit of material that sits behind the pole, and it's designed to stop any rubbing, or if it has any rubbing, it's reinforced with a really nice strong kind of PVC materials again. So it's that sort of level of detail that we do see throughout this, and obviously because it's all handmade, you know, everything's got to be just so. In the kind of front section as well, you've got curtains supplied for those nice windows we saw on the outside. But for me, it's just the headroom. You know, I'm 6'2", can stand bang right up in the corner here, and it just makes it feel, yeah, spacious. That's probably the worst word to say about this. But in the side panel, in fact, let's bring the camera in. It makes life an awful lot easier. We can show you the nitty-gritty bits. So as we kind of come in and come round, again you can kind of see what we're looking like in terms of size. So it almost looks like a separate room or conservatory. As we sort of sit back in kind of our dining chair, we've got plenty of room with all the bits on there. Even the adjustable poles in the roof section. You've got the air vent located obviously between the two sections as well, to sort of allow airflow into the awning. And then we're talking about reinforcements. You can see kind of the reinforced panels here, anywhere where there is a fraction point. And again here, where that's the extra material located there, just to stop it rubbing and such. And we've got the double clasps on every single point. Spiral chain zips, and like I said, every single point again along the base, we can see it's been reinforced and then kite stitched to make sure it's all nice and sturdy. We've got a bit of play in the outside of it as well. So as you can see, if we're falling, you've got that extra bit of slope. Now, here's a crucial thing as well, is when the side, what I would always try and do is this pole that runs along the side located here. Ideally, you want that at the furthest point out from the caravan, so where it starts to arc. So you see kind of how we've not put it necessarily with the seam line. It's more on the kind of furthest point out to really kind of get that shape and get it looking nice and pucker. So we've also created that veranda. I haven't put a pole in it as such there, but you can see how we can create that little enclosure directly out into the point with our own little gate. Worth mentioning things like your storm straps with an optional extra. You get the guide ropes initially, but you can all things like draft skirts, wheel arch cover, your peg bag, your pole bag, your canvas bag is all actually included with the awning. You can see it from this side again when it's got kind of the full front. And how kind of how taut that roof really does look. You know, that's just a testament to kind of how it sits. And we can all see how it also, in the rail, you've got the extra bit of fabric out the back here, so you've got a bit more play to kind of bring it out in kind of their sizing differences. And you've got the option of also a cozy corner to put on the front of it, if, like I say, if you really did want to make it any bigger. But yeah, I think hopefully this gives you a bit more idea about kind of the forum Etna. And if you've got any more questions or queries, you can always basically contact us directly via the link below this video. Failing that, you can always go to our website where we've got all the details of all the spec, all of the individual features, also the materials, and other videos relating to kind of the forum and other Isabellas as well as the prices depending on your size and so forth. So, but yeah, that's kind of our little video review on kind of the monster that is the forum, and certainly one that immediately we probably won't have on display just due to sort of a little bit of lack of size indoors, but you know, this really does hopefully give you a bit more of a feel for what kind of beast this really is, to be fair. So yeah, that's our little video review on the Isabella forum. And by all means, let us know if you have any more questions, queries, or feel free to comment in the box below.